Dr. Gopeesingh, thanks again for accommodating us. We have seen a spate of increased injuries throughout this COVID period. Could you, in any way, explain to us why this may be happening?
Absolutely, Kent, and thank you very much for allowing me to share this privilege of sharing some information. So to understand injuries, we really have to figure out why injuries happen. So a lot of times patients come in and say, hey doc, I hurt my hamstring, is it because I didn't stretch? Or doc, I slipped and I fall, and is that because of why I injured my knee? And the answer to that, yes, it's all true. But injury is actually a very complex interplay between what's called intrinsic factors, so factors within your body, inside of your body, things which are modifiable like strength of a muscle or length of a muscle or flexibility of a joint, and non-modifiable things like age. So for example, myself being 21 years old that I am, my modifiable risk factor, my age as a risk factor will be less than yours, Kent, who might be 45 years old, Kent. So those are some causes. And of course, we have extrinsic factors, which are things external to the body. For example, things like your surface of a pitch, for example, whether it's a very sloppy pitch, a very, very tight pitch, shoes that you wear, protective equipment, rules and adherence to rules, anti-doping violations, coaching techniques, all those come together to create an athlete that might be susceptible.
With all that is happening throughout the COVID, and is it any way possible for athletes to fully prepare for something like this?
To prepare for something like this, no, because it was unprecedented. It's a pandemic. We never planned for this. Everybody in society is being affected. What we can do, though, is apply the science that is available. We know that we can measure load, we can measure how many times you run, we can measure the density at which you run, we can use fancy GPS technology to actually give that specificity and increase the accuracy of that data. We can figure out from athletes how their internal load, how they respond to training sessions. By their giving us a score, we can measure how much their heart rate changes, what their resting heart rates are. So we can create then scientific evidence about how they respond to a game or training session. And then we can see who are the ones who need rest, who are the ones who need more time to develop that robustness of training. And if you look at some of the English Premier League footballers, and what makes mainstream media is when an athlete may be substituted, for example, and you would read about the coach and antagonism between the player. But that coach is actually using the science that he maybe have to realize that an athlete may not have a robust ability to last a full 90 minutes. And if I take a player off at 75 minutes, I may be protecting that player from an injury that potentially could have happened. And that's what coaches are doing. You see some of the most elite coaches removing athletes after 60 minutes, and purely because they're just not there yet.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned is technology. How much do you think technology has helped in terms of, I know it's increasing, but how much do you think technology has played its role in keeping it down from as bad as it could get?
Absolutely. I think technology, so professional sports has grown so much. So football, 5 years ago, just by using that GPS technology, we've seen that in the women's game, for example, the speed of the last World Cup was almost 8% faster than the World Cup before. And to get those marginal gains in performance, you have to use everything that you have. So from simple things like nutrition, but you can measure what happens with a person's ability to eat the right foods by measuring their body composition. And you could use technology to measure that. Speed and acceleration, we could use a GPS monitor or other accelerometers to measure how fast that person is running or how many times that person is able to maintain that maximum speed. We could use ultrasound machines when we think that there's something is wrong with an athlete to look into a joint, to look into a muscle, to get real-time data, what's happening. We use a lot of technology. We use sensors to look at kinetic chain movements. Has a lot to play now, of course. It doesn't take away from, there's an art and science to all of this. So science has a role and gives us information that we then use by coaches, used by strength and conditioning people to adapt. And that's where the art of coaching is.
There you heard from Dr. Anil Gopeesingh, one of the foremost sports physicians in Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Gopeesingh has traveled with the national track and field teams, football teams all over, and has a lot of knowledge. There he spoke about, athletes and what causes injuries and also what can help prevent them, and especially the use of technology now, guys. Now, in part 2 of the interview, he talks about athletes who would have been training to qualify for the Olympics this year, and what it may mean for them, having it put off, whether it works for them or whether it works against them. Here's part 2 of my interview with Dr. Anil Gopeesingh. the cancellation of the Olympic Games, as someone who has traveled extensively with national teams, what do you think this can do? Do you see it benefiting some athletes, or is it a balance in both ways? It may benefit while it may be work against some athletes?
I think it really has had an effect mentally. So the mental aspect of athletic development really took a great boot in the bum, to be honest. Some of our top athletes really struggled with that. They prepared for the year, they were excited about it. Yes, COVID happened in March, but preparation for track and field starts September. So there's a lot of investment into getting their body ready, and they struggled mentally. On the other side of it, it allowed some of our athletes who were injured and who may have had a year of a doping violation, whether real or apparent, to facilitate them to be able to participate next year. We are definitely an aging Olympic team, an aging sprint team. So having a little bit of time off would have allowed a little bit of recovery of their bodies. But it's performance is really an art, and this year could have been their year, but next year could also be their year. So there's no magical formula, but I think it had positives and negatives. Kent, I really think there was a lot of mental challenges that athletes had. How could they drive themselves to, with the uncertainty of when next they can perform or when next they can compete, how did they drive themselves to go and train hard every day? It's hard.
I think that's something from experience as well, that people don't seem to understand the mental aspect of preparation for competition.
Exactly. Our athletes, and I know you've seen it as well, our track athletes will go out and train every single day hard. They are really champions and heroes. They go out every single day to work. They give their hardest, because every single day they know they don't train. Such an individual sport, if they don't give up their all, they don't see the rewards of what they do. And they really, when you look at them train and you see them pushing hard every single day, with injury or without injury, to me it's almost heroic in how they do it, and have been doing it for the last 10 years of their life. So my hats are always off to them, and that's why I enjoy taking care of them so much, because I know they give up their all. And mentally they struggle, because there's no practice events, there were no events that they could go on and see where their performance has been going, to gauge where they have been achieving all that hard work. And then, as they get older, you don't know what their capacity to train will be like next year. So there's a lot of uncertainty. But hopefully, with the support of our national community, with the support of us as people, we can drive them into another year or two.
And how has it been for you, throughout COVID, as a doctor in the sporting field? How difficult has it been, or how has it been for you so far throughout the COVID-19 period?
It was a great chance to spend some time with family, but I think we tried to also use this time that we had to bring our athletes in, to do assessments and to find those intrinsic risk factors for injury, so that we could use the time off to sort of fix those deficiencies in the kinetic chain. But there's a lot of times when we felt that we had, public health made it so uncertain, because there were times when our virus prevalence rates were rising, so we had to shut back down access to gyms, shut back down access to stadium. So it was tough. But I salute also my public health colleague doctors who work really hard, all our doctors and nurses and staff in our health centers and health hospitals who worked really hard to keep us safe. And they made decisions that I think are in the best interest of our national population, and we just have to accept that. Now we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel with our vaccinations, and we have to now push our athletes towards the belief that Olympic Games will happen next year. It'll be different. It won't be the same as we've had in previous years, but we have to push and help them too.
And finally, what would your hope or wish be for 2021? For someone who's involved in the medical field, and also someone who's also involved in sport.
Just for us to be safe, and for us as a society, as a country, for us to figure out that there are enough good people in our Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, that we have to act and do the right things as a group, because we have to, not only for sport but for society as well, we have to make a change. We have to take back our country. We have to make our country a positive place for our youth, protect our women, and just to take care of each other. I think if we remember that each single day we take care of each other, we can have a better country.